Tonight we wander through a fog-soaked London street where the gas lamps glow like tired moons and the cobblestones sweat beneath a thin drizzle. You stand outside a narrow brick townhouse sometime in the 1870s, your boots damp, your lungs politely negotiating with the coal smoke. Inside, behind heavy velvet curtains, an entire empire is trying to fall asleep and failing rather spectacularly. You climb the creaking stairs to a bedroom lit by a single oil lamp turned low. The mattress is stuffed with horsehair. The sheets are crisp, maybe a little scratchy. The city hums beyond the glass. Carriage wheels, distant factory whistles, the occasional shout that drifts and dissolves. You lie down in your high-collared nightshirt, hands folded like you're posing for a very respectable portrait, and you wait for sleep to arrive. It does not. Instead, you get what Victorians call wakefulness, nervous agitation, or, if they're feeling poetic, a most obstinate insomnia. The word itself had already entered English centuries earlier, but in the 19th century it becomes something people talk about openly, almost competitively. Queen Victoria herself reportedly struggled with disrupted sleep during stressful periods of her reign, which means that even in Buckingham Palace, someone is fluffing pillows with a sigh. You probably won't survive this era's bedtime routine without at least one stern lecture about your moral fiber. Because here's the thing, in Victorian Britain, sleep is not just a biological necessity. It's a measure of character. A good, solid 8 hours, though they don't always count it that way, suggests discipline, moderation, and a calm conscience. Tossing and turning? That hints at overwork, overstimulation, or worse, an unruly mind. Historians still argue whether the Victorians actually slept less than we do, or whether industrialization simply made sleeplessness more visible and more discussed. What is certain is that by the mid-19th century, insomnia is recognized as both a medical complaint and a social inconvenience. You shift under the blankets. They are thick, layered wool, designed more for surviving damp chill than for breathable comfort. Central heating is not a thing yet. You either freeze heroically or roast beside a fireplace that pops in size. Open windows are recommended by some reformers for fresh air, but open windows also invite in London's famous fog, a charming blend of mist and coal soot that settles into your lungs like an uninvited houseguest. Mainstream medical opinion of the era holds that sleep is governed by the nervous system. The 19th century is obsessed with nerves. Nerves explain fainting, hysteria, irritability, and the alarming urge to read novels past midnight. Physicians speak gravely of nervous exhaustion, a condition thought to arise from the rapid pace of modern life. Railways, telegraphs, newspapers, and the shocking realization that other people exist outside your village. You stare at the ceiling and consider that the telegraph, introduced in Britain in the 1830s and expanded rapidly afterward, allows news to travel at unprecedented speed. For the first time, crises feel immediate. Markets fluctuate faster. Wars are reported sooner. Even if you personally have not sent a telegram, the cultural tempo has quickened. Some commentators blame this acceleration for restless nights. The empire, it seems, is too busy to sleep. There's also the matter of lighting. Gas lamps extend the day. Before widespread artificial light, evenings were dim and naturally brief. Now shops glow, parlors shine, and people linger in conversation long after sunset. You attend a dinner party that stretches indulgently into the night, fueled by rich food and richer gossip. By the time you return home, your mind hums like the very gas jets above your head. A quirky tidbit drifts through your thoughts. Some Victorians believed that the position of your bed in relation to magnetic north might influence sleep quality. While not a dominant theory, the 19th century's fascination with invisible forces, magnetism, electricity, ether seeps into domestic advice. Rotate the bed, perhaps. Align yourself with the planet. If nothing else, it gives you something to do at 3 in the morning besides counting sheep who, frankly, have unionized and stopped cooperating. You roll onto your side. The pillow smells faintly of lavender water, dabbed there by a well-meaning relative. Lavender is already associated with calm, though it's more folk wisdom than rigorously tested science. Still, scent matters. Victorian households are filled with competing odors. Coal smoke, chamber pots, furniture polish, cabbage. A little lavender feels like optimism in botanical form. Outside, a church bell marks the hour. You calculate how much sleep you have left before dawn. This arithmetic, so familiar to modern insomniacs, is not uniquely yours. Diaries from the era describe long wakeful stretches, especially among the middle and upper classes who have the luxury of noticing them. Working-class laborers, by contrast, often collapse into sleep from sheer exhaustion, though even they are not immune to anxiety and discomfort. Remember this imbalance. It will matter later. You sigh. The mattress dips. The city breathes. In medical journals of the time, insomnia is sometimes described as a symptom rather than a disease. It accompanies grief, indigestion, melancholy, overstudy, and excessive tea drinking. Yes, tea, Britain's beloved national beverage, contains caffeine, though they don't use that term widely until later in the century. Some doctors gently suggest moderation. Others shrug and pour another cup. Historians still argue whether segmented sleep, sleeping in two distinct phases with a wakeful interval between, was common in earlier centuries and gradually disappeared with industrialization. If that pattern lingers in Victorian Britain, then your midnight wakefulness might not be abnormal at all. You could, theoretically, rise, read a devotional, stoke the fire, and return to bed for your second sleep. But society is nudging toward a consolidated night. Efficiency is fashionable. You turn the lamp down even lower. The flame shrinks, then steadies. In this small pool of amber light, insomnia feels intimate, almost theatrical. You are both audience and performer in the drama of your own wakefulness. And so, in this foggy city at the height of empire, you begin to understand that Victorian insomnia is not just about lying awake. It is about nerves, morality, industry, and the creeping suspicion that progress might be just a little too loud. The cures, as you will soon discover, are as varied as the reasons, and some of them are soothing, some peculiar, and some surprisingly cozy in ways that might raise your modern eyebrows. For now, though, you lie still, listening to the muffled heartbeat of London, waiting for sleep to decide whether you have earned it. Your eyes are still open, tracing faint cracks in the plaster ceiling, when the Victorian mind begins to diagnose you. Not gently, of course. Nothing in the 19th century is diagnosed gently. You are not merely awake. You are experiencing a disturbance of the nerves, a rebellion of digestion, perhaps even a subtle moral imbalance. Congratulations. In the mid-1800s, medicine is straddling two worlds. On one side, ancient humoral ideas still linger like old wallpaper. The notion that bodily fluids, blood, phlegm, black bile, yellow bile, must remain in balance. On the other, newer neurological theories are emerging, inspired by advances in anatomy and physiology. The nervous system becomes the star of the show. Insomnia, physicians suggest, often stems from nervous excitement. And in Victorian Britain, excitement is everywhere. You picture a doctor in a stiff collar explaining that your brain is overstimulated, its delicate fibers vibrating like telegraph wires in a storm. This metaphor is not accidental. The telegraph network, which by the 1850s spans vast distances across Britain and beyond, becomes a favorite comparison for the human nervous system. If wires can transmit messages at lightning speed, surely your nerves can too, and perhaps too well. Historians still argue whether this technological analogy genuinely shaped medical theory or simply offered a convenient image, but the language of electricity seeps into discussions of sleep. You are told that your insomnia may be caused by neurasthenia, a fashionable diagnosis later in the century, especially in America but influential in Britain as well. Neurasthenia describes a kind of nervous exhaustion, fatigue, irritability, headaches, sleeplessness, blamed on the pressures of modern life. Railways rattle across the countryside. Factories hum. Newspapers bombard you with stories. Even the act of reading too many serialized novels is suspected of agitating the mind. Imagine being told to stop binge-watching Dickens for your own health. Digestion, too, is under suspicion. Victorian doctors frequently connect insomnia with dyspepsia or indigestion. You ate roast beef at 8 in the evening? With gravy? Bold choice. Medical manuals warn that a heavy supper may sit in the stomach like a stubborn guest, sending irritating signals to the brain and preventing sleep. One mainstream fact repeated in 19th-century medical texts is that the stomach and brain are closely linked through the vagus nerve, though the precise mechanisms are not fully understood at the time. The advice is simple: eat lightly at night. Gruel, perhaps. Toast. Something that sounds like it apologizes for existing. A quirky fringe belief drifts into your awareness. Some practitioners argue that insomnia can result from congestion of the brain, meaning too much blood rushing upward. The remedy? Elevate the head slightly, or apply cool compresses to draw blood away. It's an image both soothing and faintly absurd. Your thoughts as overenthusiastic swimmers who need to be politely redirected. Then there is the matter of emotion. Grief, worry, ambition. These are not abstract states. They are considered physiological forces. If you are a businessman fretting over investments, your sleeplessness might be blamed on excessive mental exertion. If you are a mother anxious about a child's cough, your wakefulness becomes maternal devotion taken too far. The Victorians are deeply interested in self-control. A calm mind is a virtuous mind. To lie awake is, in some circles, to have failed at composure. You shift under the blankets again, and imagine a physician asking about your daily routine. Do you take sufficient exercise? Do you read in bed? Do you indulge in strong tea or coffee? Coffee houses, popular in earlier centuries, still exist, and tea has become a national ritual. Caffeine, though not always labeled as such, is recognized by some doctors as stimulating. Moderation is the mantra. Everything in moderation except perhaps moral judgment. Women, in particular, are often diagnosed with insomnia as part of broader nervous disorders. The concept of hysteria, rooted in ancient Greek ideas about the wandering womb, still influences medical thinking, though it evolves in Victorian hands. Sleeplessness in women might be attributed to delicate constitutions, reproductive cycles, or excessive education. Yes, too much learning is occasionally blamed for keeping young ladies awake at night. One can almost hear the textbooks snapping shut in protest. At the same time, there are genuinely progressive voices. Some physicians begin to treat insomnia as a specific condition worthy of targeted remedies rather than a vague moral failing. Medical journals discuss case studies. Patients describe lying awake for hours, hearts pounding, thoughts racing. The language is surprisingly familiar. You are not alone in this dim room. Across the city and the empire, others stare at their own ceilings. Historians still argue whether Victorian society pathologized normal variations in sleep more aggressively than previous generations. Was occasional wakefulness once accepted as part of the human rhythm? Or did industrial schedules, factory whistles, train timetables, create stricter expectations for consolidated rest? The debate hums quietly, like the city outside. You imagine being advised to cultivate tranquility of mind. Perhaps read a devotional text. Avoid heated debates before bedtime. Definitely do not calculate the British Empire's territorial reach at midnight. That way lies madness. The irony, of course, is that the more you focus on sleep, the more elusive it becomes. Victorian advice manuals occasionally warn against excessive anxiety about insomnia itself. Worrying about not sleeping is considered a self-fulfilling prophecy. In this, at least, the 19th century and the 21st hold hands in weary solidarity. Your pillow has gone slightly warm. You flip it to the cool side, an innovation that requires no patent and no physician's approval. The sheets rustle softly. Somewhere downstairs, a clock ticks with exaggerated patience. So here you are, a bundle of nerves, digestion, morality, and modernity, wrapped in wool blankets and expectations. Insomnia in this era is not just a symptom. It is a reflection of who you are, how you live, and whether you have managed your tea intake like a responsible citizen of the empire. And as you lie awake, absorbing these theories like the damp London air, you begin to sense that help is on its way. A knock at the door, a doctor with a black bag, bottles clinking reassuringly inside. Because if your nerves are the problem, Victorian medicine has something for that. The next evening, you find yourself seated in a modest parlor that smells faintly of coal smoke, furniture wax, and something herbal trying very hard to be respectable. A physician has arrived. Not the dramatic kind who bursts in shouting about contagion, but the Victorian variety. Calm, serious, faintly judgmental, and dressed as though sleep itself might be offended by wrinkles. He sets his leather bag on a side table with a practiced thud. You watch as he opens it like a magician preparing a slow, boring trick. Inside are glass bottles, folded papers, perhaps a small mortar and pestle. This is not a world of mass-produced blister packs. This is a world of tinctures, tonics, powders, and the comforting belief that if something tastes unpleasant enough, it must be doing something. He asks you questions in a tone that suggests your insomnia is both fascinating and mildly inconvenient. How long have you been wakeful? Do you experience palpitations? Do you worry excessively? Do you eat supper late? Do you indulge in tea after dusk? You answer as honestly as possible, though you are tempted to lie about the tea. Tea feels like the only friend you have right now. Mainstream Victorian medical practice, especially among trained physicians, is increasingly shaped by professionalization. The 1858 Medical Act in Britain establishes the General Medical Council and helps regulate who can call themselves a doctor. This is a major historical fact of the era. Medicine is becoming more standardized, even if treatments remain creatively experimental. You, as a patient, are beginning to encounter doctors who see themselves as scientific men, not folk healers or charming quacks. Still, the line between science and hopeful improvisation is thin. The doctor nods gravely and declares that your nervous system is overexcited. It is a popular diagnosis. Everything is overexcited. Your nerves are like a socialite who has attended too many parties and refuses to go home. He begins to recommend tonics. In Victorian medicine, a tonic is not a single specific substance. It is a category, an idea. Tonics strengthen. Tonics restore. Tonics improve tone, which is basically Victorian code for your body seems floppy, and we dislike that. One common tonic ingredient is quinine, originally used to treat malaria and derived from cinchona bark. It is bitter, famous, and widely used. Another is iron, prescribed for anemia and weak blood. The Victorians adore iron. If your blood seems thin, your spirits low, your sleep disturbed, iron will be suggested as if it were a moral virtue you could swallow. You are offered phosphorus in some preparations, sometimes as part of phosphates believed to support the brain. The Victorian mind is obsessed with brain nourishment. There's a widespread belief that intellectual exertion consumes physical resources, and that certain substances can replenish the nervous tissue. Historians still argue whether these ideas were influenced more by genuine physiological observation or by cultural anxiety about overwork, but the result is the same. You are treated like a candle burning too fast, and the doctor wants to slow the flame. He scribbles a prescription on paper with a flourish that implies this is both art and authority. You notice the Latin abbreviations RX, perhaps. It is comforting and slightly intimidating. Latin makes everything feel official, even if the mixture is essentially sweetened alcohol with a side of hope. Because yes, many Victorian calming remedies are suspended in alcohol. Tinctures are alcohol-based extracts of herbs and compounds. The alcohol preserves the mixture and helps dissolve certain substances. It also, conveniently, makes you feel a bit sleepy. Victorian medicine occasionally resembles an elaborate excuse to drink. The doctor suggests a bedtime draught, perhaps valerian, a plant known for its sedative properties and used for centuries. Valerian smells like something that crawled out of a damp cellar and decided to become a medicine. It is not charming, but it is popular. Another herbal option is hops, the same plant used in brewing beer. Hops pillows, small sachets stuffed with dried hops, are sometimes recommended to promote sleep. A quirky tidbit is that some people claim the scent of hops can dull mental agitation. Whether it truly works is debatable, but it certainly makes your pillow smell like a sleepy tavern. Then there is chamomile, lavender, and lemon balm. These are gentle remedies, often associated with domestic care. In many households, women prepare herbal teas and infusions as part of everyday health management. The line between kitchen and clinic is blurred. Your insomnia might be treated with a physician's prescription, but also with Aunt Margaret's soothing tisane, brewed in a chipped teapot that has seen more drama than Parliament. The doctor warns you about overstimulation. No heavy reading at night. No heated arguments. No exciting theater performances. He recommends a walk in the fresh air, meaning not directly beside a factory chimney. He also advises regularity. Victorians love regularity the way cats love knocking things off tables. Bed at the same hour. Rise at the same hour. Eat at the same hour. Your body, he claims, is a creature of habit. Train it like a polite dog. But of course, the problem is that your body is not a polite dog. It is more like a raccoon with anxiety. The doctor's demeanor is soothing, if a little smug. He has seen this before. He tells you insomnia is common among clerks, businessmen, writers, and anyone who thinks too much. He implies gently that thinking too much is a form of vanity. Historians still argue whether Victorian doctors truly understood mental health as distinct from physical illness, or whether they simply folded everything into nervous conditions. In practice, insomnia sits in the middle. It can be caused by pain, digestion, stress, grief, or the mysterious buzzing of modern life. The doctor doesn't claim to know everything. He simply claims to know enough. He offers you a small bottle of syrupy liquid, amber in color, with a label written in careful script. It smells of herbs and alcohol. He instructs you to take a spoonful before bed. Not too much, mind you. Victorians love dosing instructions that sound like they were invented by someone who has never met a spoon. You hold the bottle up to the lamplight. It glows warmly, like bottled sunset. You feel a strange comfort. Not because you trust the mixture entirely, but because you trust the ritual. Someone has taken your sleeplessness seriously enough to prescribe a solution. And in a world where insomnia can